Satanists, atheists, disbelievers, and Christians all use the same argument, a mistranslation of Revelations, to try to frame who the 144,000 are. I believe I am one of the 144,000, and there are possibly more than that now, because it starts with 144,000, and then many multitude come to faith because of them, so then this number just expands. But how would that be the case if they were Jewish men? And so this is a very important point that I hear brought up. It's brought up by Christians to disempower people that could be one of the chosen ones. It's brought up to disempower women. It's brought up to say that no one is saved except for 144,000 Jews and everyone else goes to hell. This was actually one of the first arguments used by the devil, who I made a separate video on, Jezebel's boyfriend, or husband that wasn't married, same thing. But they all love to use this argument, and that's how I know that if the devil uses this argument, that only 144,000 Jewish men go to heaven, if a Christian uses this as well, then they are also working for the kingdom of darkness, or clearly confused. They don't have the proper information. So, what makes this so ridiculous? Revelations was written after the rest of the New Testament. It was actually a very old book, so I'm going to look up some of this while I am making the video. Let's see. I'm going to put my video editor on top of other things. I'm going to search, look up, when was Revelations written? Okay. So 95 AD, okay, they date it to here. John of Patmos wrote the book of Revelation separately. Nobody truly knows, but this is the best information we have, and it could be true. Okay, so according to Margaret Barker, the language of the Jerusalem Christians was Aramaic, and their scriptures were in Hebrew. It is unlikely that the original language of Revelations was Greek, and, you know, when you translate from language to language, there's going to be some errors. There's going to be some problems with, like, conjugating things. And she prefers to believe that it was originally written in Aramaic or Hebrew and was later translated into Greek. And that's when they also, when it was translated to Greek, they changed Jesus' name from Yeshua to Jesus, because there was no J in these older languages, so it definitely wasn't Jesus. But we know what it stands for, so we're not going to be punished for something that we didn't do intentionally and we had no idea about because we were misled. So the book of Revelation, or the book of the Apocalypse, is the final book of the New Testament. Okay, let's see what else it says here in Wikipedia. That's got to be right, it's Wikipedia. So it's the only apocalyptic book remaining in the New Testament canon, yes. Other really cool stuff was taken out. So, you know, about 100 AD. Excuse me. Okay, so there's just a whole bunch of theories in here, like how it's already happened. I don't believe so. I don't believe it's already happened. We haven't had 1,000 years of peace. There's never been 1,000 years of peace. These other prophecies haven't happened. It would have had to be worldwide. And maybe in the very distant past there was advanced technology, but there hasn't been since, if there ever was. So a lot of these prophecies just could not have come to pass until recently. Well, anyways, Revelations was written after the Old Testament, and it was the last book of the New Testament. And this is after Jesus. So, if Jesus came to earth and said that we are saved, technically we are saved based on our deeds, but Christians believe we are saved based on accepting Jesus in our hearts. Either way, though, in this case, it wouldn't make a difference. It doesn't matter what your gender is. And at this point, they would no longer be Jews. So the people that are saved are not Jewish, and they're not only men, according to the standard of Christian theology. So, the belief of modern-day Christians is that any male or female who accepts Jesus in their heart goes to heaven. So how would it then be that only Jewish men are saved and go to heaven? But Jews don't believe the New Testament. So they don't believe this idea that if you believe in Jesus, you go to heaven. So they reject that. So this makes absolutely no sense. I need you guys to really understand this. It's really late and it's hard for me to get this out as clear as I need to. This is an extremely important point. The devil seriously uses this point to try to turn people away from God by saying only 144,000 Jews are saved and everyone else goes to hell, which is ridiculous, and it clearly doesn't say that. And then Christians in the upper echelons of the church say the same thing. They are also working for the kingdom of darkness. How would it be that after Jesus came to earth, only Jewish men would be saved, when Jesus saved both men and women? And the Christians believed they were saved based on believing in Jesus. But Jews don't believe in Jesus. Jews reject Jesus, and Jews don't believe the New Testament. So this makes absolutely no sense. Is it Christian or is it not Christian? And I know that we're judged based on our deeds. And if we have good deeds, then God will make himself known to us. And if we have bad deeds, then we'll just get caught up in the world, forget about our faith, and then, go into a spiral of sin and end up going to hell. Unless we later repent, which is great. But how does being a Jewish man mean that you get to heaven? This is a complete opposite. If Christians say that only 144,000 Jewish men go to heaven, then the whole premise of being a Christian is false. They just admitted that. They just admitted that accepting Jesus in your heart, believing in Jesus, doesn't get you saved, and only if you're man gets you saved. And they say Jews, but Jews reject the New Testament, and Jews don't believe in Jesus. Now, there is a group today called Jews for Jesus, but generally, as a whole, most Jews do not accept the New Testament, and they don't believe in Jesus. Some might. So you see how this makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense. So I'm going to go back to the meaning of the word, which is they were the first fruits. They're like the apostles for the end times. And because of sharing their testimony, it brought many multitudes of people to faith and belief in God. And one of the problems with the translation we have, the English translation is not always accurate, especially when it comes to gender-related issues, where you have, I think Greek was the worst one. So if things were translated to Greek and then to English, it causes a lot of problems in terms of assigning gender roles, assigning genders to things. Where if something was unisex, it had no specific gender, it just referred to people, then they would translate it to say men. And then, Bible colleges and many pastors read this and then they believe it does not apply to women, when clearly it did. And then when you have Jews, this is a huge problem. Like when it says Jews in the Bible, it didn't mean like thousands of years later, like what we see as modern Jews. It's not a modern Jew. Um, with the long beard and the sideburns and the hat and the long cloak. This is not what a Jew is. This is not what a Jew is. Jews were God's people because he chose them. They weren't particularly large. They weren't particularly strong. They weren't particularly smart. They were probably just like a normal, regular people, but their DNA was pure. They were people that God chose, and they would mess up, but then they would apologize and come back to God. They were just like a normal class of people. But they were God's people. They were the believers. And they would mess up, they would repent, they would come back, they were believers. So Jews can be of any ethnicity, they can be from any country, they can be any gender. Jews are people that believe in God. So Christians might just say Christians, but when it refers to Jews in the Bible, that's like saying Christians. I mean, you can change the title all you want, but you have to look at the definition. So you had believers that were not sinning, and they were really following God and doing everything right. As it says, they were sacrificial lambs. So not only were they not sinning, they were trying their best to follow God. And other people blamed them for everything. They were just blamed, and they were like martyrs. But that doesn't mean they were killed either. Here's another word that's mistranslated. Martyr. To be a martyr, you can be killed, but you don't have to be killed. It's like to be destroyed, to be attacked. So you can be destroyed financially. Your family can reject you. You can have your children taken from you. You can lose your job. You can lose your home. You can lose your pets. You can lose your health. Like, look at Job. He was destroyed, but he was very much alive. And so these sacrificial lambs, the 144,000, are the first fruits that are foretold in the book of Revelations. And it's like, how is the evil going to be beaten? How is the Antichrist, the satanic cabal, how are they going to be defeated? And it's by the lamb, like the slain lamb. And this represents the chosen ones, where they are pure and innocent with a heart of gold, and they have sinned, but right now they're not sinning. And right now they're innocent. They're blameless. And lies are being said about them, and yeah, they're being blamed for everything, even though they're doing nothing wrong. And when they share their testimony and other people become aware of it, it defeats the enemy, it defeats the kingdom of darkness, and more people come to faith. We can see that happening right now. I can see this happening right now, just following politics, watching the news, what's coming out. And it starts with 144,000, then it spreads to probably half the people in the world. Maybe 77% of people in the world. I don't know. But if somebody in the church says that only 144,000 people go to heaven, they're lying. And if they say that those 144,000 are Jewish men, they are clearly mistaken. Because if they accept that, then they clearly are not a Christian, and they reject all of the tenets of their religion and their religious beliefs. Where to be a Jew that doesn't believe in the New Testament and doesn't believe in Jesus, and you're a male? No. Jesus didn't care what your gender was. Yes, being a good person was important, and it still is. You show your love for God through your